As we go to our next team here, the Las Vegas Raiders, it's kind of funny to think about the Patriots and Seahawks Super Bowl, how great of a Super Bowl that was. And now two of the stars of that show, Tom Brady and Pete Carroll, wearing the same colors, wearing the same logo. Tom Brady, obviously a minority owner now of the Las Vegas Raiders, and Pete Carroll, now the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. So the Raiders have had a lot of change this offseason. They went 4-13 last year. That was fourth in the AFC West. Pete Carroll now in as their head coach. A lot of changes here that we will get. The quarterback positions, the general manager as well, with John Spytek having his fingerprints all over this team as well. The projected win total that we have for the Las Vegas Raiders. Walt, you paying attention? 7.3. So almost 7.5 on our projections there for the Raiders. And I think that is what goes into, okay, the Chiefs number's a little bit lower, the Chargers number's a little bit lower. It's because these other teams, I think, are going up a little bit. This is going to be a pretty competitive division this year. When you look at those stats that we have on the screen, their offensive grade last year, 69.4. That was tied for 25th. And then the defensive grade, of course, had to be a lot better. 57.2, 30th in the NFL. How do we feel about the Las Vegas Raiders? Talk to me about the offseason vibes that we have now in the preseason going into the regular season, some of the changes, and then you can start to talk about the biggest strengths that you have for this team and where you think they're going to lean on this year.
Well, I think the vibe, as it always is with Pete Carroll around, is it should be positive, right? Especially on the offensive side of the ball, where you're talking about this team, you could argue could be the most improved offense in football, considering where they were last year, which was basically just the Brock Bowers show. Right now, look, you were second to last in the NFL in passing grade. You bring in Geno Smith, who's been 8th in the league in passing grade over the last 3 years, and the best deep thrower in the league. That was one problem, is that Raiders quarterbacks the last couple of years couldn't stretch the field vertically. They were dead last in the league in rushing grade last year. I don't believe anybody had more than 500 rushing yards for this team, maybe 600. And now you have Ashton Jeanty, who to me is the best running back prospect we've seen in the last couple of years, at least since Bijan Robinson, talking about 99.9 rushing grade during 3 years at Boise State. Perfect. Setting yards after contact records, setting missed tackles force records. This is the back they needed. This was the one offense last year where I looked at their run game and I went, oh no, the running backs are actually the problem. Their offensive line is pretty solid. Colton Miller, Jackson Powers Johnson up front, right? DJ Glaze playing well as a rookie. I looked at them and I go, the blocking is there. They just have nobody with any juice in the backfield. Now you've got Ashton Jeanty, the 6th overall pick. I think the improvement, even just that those two guys bring them, Geno Smith and Ashton Jeanty, is major. And then you look outside and the weaponry that they have, especially adding the 2 rookie receivers, Jack Bech and Dante Thornton. This is going to be a fun offense to watch, I think. As long as Geno Smith can make the adjustment, he's protected well enough, which I think he should be behind this offensive line. It's going to look a lot better. And don't forget Chip Kelly calling plays now here. I think that's a major improvement too. He had a great season in his only season as Ohio State's offensive coordinator last year, winning a national title. I think this offense is going to be a lot of fun to watch, going to keep him in a lot of games.
Yeah, and I like some of the offensive additions that they've made as well at receiver, right? I think that was a bit, like you mentioned, it was just the Brock Bowers show last year. They didn't really have enough outside of him. And granted, a lot of the guys that I'm mentioning here are younger guys, but I've got faith that they could be difference makers. I like the Jack Bech pick. I think that gives him another good middle of the field slot option. You really have a lot of customization and versatility with him and Brock Bowers where you want to align those guys. I think Deontay Thornton, you mentioned that Geno Smith likes to throw the ball deep. He's had DK Metcalf for the last couple of years with him being in Seattle. Now he's got Deontay Thornton. And am I calling Deontay Thornton a DK Metcalf clone? No. But what he did really well at Tennessee, ran vertically down the field. This guy's a legit 6'5". He's a big wide receiver, but he wins vertically. That's how he won at Tennessee. And I think the reason why he just wasn't picked very high is because there's not a lot of versatility to him. He's kind of very streamlined of a role that's perfect for what the Las Vegas Raiders needed. You throw in having Trey Tucker as well, Jacoby Myers, and I actually think that this receiving core is not bad. You'll see what you can get from Michael Mayer as well as a tight end too, but you throw in the fact that you've got faith in Geno Smith. Yeah, you've got faith in the running back that you're handing the ball off to. Chip Kelly, now the offensive coordinator for the Las Vegas Raiders. I think this could be a fun season for them. I really do. I think they could be a sneaky good offense this upcoming season. The biggest weakness you have for this team is their pass defense, and it is hard to disagree with that. I mean, yes, they made some changes, but last year, 40.7 coverage grade from their corners and their safeties. That was the lowest in the NFL last season. Now, they've got some new players in there. They bring in Eric Stokes. They bring in Jeremy Chin, who has had a pretty nice preseason. I will certainly give him that. You bring in Terrell Edmonds as well, but it's Kai Blue Kelly, it's DeCamerion Richardson. You're looking at Darnay Holmes. They drafted Darian Porter, but rookie corner, it's really tough. Even if you like the rookie corner, it's tough to think that they could just step in right away and be really, really good. It just does not happen with a lot of corners in the NFL. And so they made changes, Dalton, but it's hard for me to look at this secondary and say, yeah, they're going to be like marginally better. Certainly anything out of the cellar ranked 32nd in the NFL is going to be better, but I think realistic for this team, you're hoping you're around 20. You're like 20th in overall PFF coverage grade for your secondary players. What do you think? Are you still really worried about them? What do you think about that sort of as a goal to be around that ranking for this team?
Yeah, you feel like the Raiders are going to be in a lot of high-scoring games. I think that's what's going to end up happening here because it's their pass defense in general, right? First of all, they weren't just last in coverage grade last year. They were last in coverage grade going back to 2021. That was the worst coverage grade any team has put up since 2021. So you look at how bad they were. Now, if Pete Carroll can come in there and get them playing just fundamentally sound football so they're not that bad, then you mentioned it, so be it. But they don't have a single veteran player who played in the NFL last year who had at least a 65 coverage grade last year. So the coverage, and that's at corner, at safety, or at linebacker, right? You got some linebackers who have struggled in coverage too. Landon Roberts, Jermaine Pratt, Devin White, all those guys. And then even the pass rush, honestly, Max Crosby's coming off a down year that ended with injury. I think he's going to bounce back. You don't usually have a Max Crosby issue, but Malcolm Kuntz didn't play at all last year. And now that Christian Wilkins has been cut, I have no idea really what they have for an interior pass rush. There's really not a whole lot going on there. So it's even their pass rush overall. This is not a pass defense in general that you project to be a highly graded unit, obviously, other than Max Crosby. It's going to take some time. And I think what's going to happen is the Raiders are going to find themselves in a lot of shootouts this year because their offense is, I think it could be really good, and their defense doesn't look a whole lot better than it did last year.
This linebacker room is funny to me. Jermaine Pratt, Landon Roberts, Devin White, Jalen Smith, Tommy Eichenberg, Cody Lindenberg that they drafted this year. It's just kind of a funny group. Won't call them dogs. I hope they are dogs. They'll need them in the middle of that.
That's some
defense,
names
but,
right there. That is.
They'll need somebody to step up because Robert Spillane was great for them last year, and you're losing him. And Walt mentioned in the chat as well. You're losing Jacorian Bennett, who I felt like was their best corner last year, and you don't even have him. So you're just, I think, really hoping that Pete Carroll's got the guys that he has faith in, right? I mean, I think on the depth chart, nobody's really going to be afraid of throwing against the Raiders secondary. But what you hope is that the veteran coaching, Patrick Graham as well as the defensive coordinator, like they just have the right guys in the building who can execute their job the right way. And I think a big emphasis for the Raiders this year is just going to be limiting a lot of the explosives. You mentioned, like, try to not get into as many shootouts as they possibly can. So that's sort of what I think there about the Raiders. Let's talk about Geno Smith very briefly, because we actually have another quarterback conversation that we need to get to in a second. You mentioned 99.9 deep passing grade since 2022. That's the best in the NFL. Do you feel like, do you agree with what I said about Deontay Thornton? Like, do you think that they have the guys on this team to make the most of a player who really likes to throw it deep down the field? Or are you worried that there's just not going to be a lot of opportunities to reap that reward of what Geno Smith wants to do?
No, I think, look, throwing the ball, since Derek Carr left, throwing the ball deep down the field has been a problem for this team. When you talk about guys like that have played for them, Gardner Minshew, Desmond Ridder, last year, Aiden O'Connell, right? O'Connell's a gunslinger, but he also throws, it's a lot of turnover-worthy plays with him. So when you look at what Geno Smith adds with the arm strength and his ability to throw it deep, and usually deep passing is very volatile year over year. That's why I like to mention that he's the best deep passer in the NFL over the last 3 years, a perfect 99.9 passing grade on 20-plus yard targets. We know he can sling it down the field. And you mentioned Dont'e Thornton. I think if I was going to handpick a quarterback for Dont'e Thornton to come into the league with, it would be Geno Smith. Honestly, I mean, you look at Thornton in the deep threat that he is at 6'5" with 4.3 speed. He led all of college football in yards per reception last year. He's very explosive. He just was in a Tennessee offense that didn't get him a whole lot of volume because that's the way that goes, is you get deep shots or you get nothing down there. But no, I think Chip Kelly's going to find a way to use Thornton. I think he's going to use that deep passing ability of Geno Smith. And I'm pretty sure it was either first or second last year at Ohio State. Will Howard was the highest graded deep passer, or second highest graded deep passer in the country under Chip Kelly. And he had a guy in Jeremiah Smith who he knew darn well he was getting vertical with. So Chip Kelly's going to emphasize the vertical passing game to complement the run game with Ashton Jeanty. I think Geno Smith, again, I think we just have to say with Geno, There's a lot went wrong last year in Seattle, and he still had them right on the cusp of playoff. Didn't they win 10 games? They went 10-7 last year. And they lost the division on a tiebreaker. I mean, you look at the success Geno had in Seattle. He was arguably a top 10 quarterback during his 3 years. There is no team realistically that has improved their quarterback situation more than the Raiders, going from second to last in the league, going from Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell to Geno Smith, who's got the 8th best passing grade in the league over the last 3 years and can really sling it vertically. It's a great acquisition. He's played really good football, and last year Seattle just let him down with the pass protection, and he didn't play great in the red zone. I'll admit that. That's the one flaw. He's got to be better in the red zone, but man, oh man, I mean, this is such an improvement. It gives you such credibility in your offense to go from the guys that had the last couple years to Geno Smith.
This is a Geno Smith believer show right here. And we've got the grades to back it up. I know some people look at Geno Smith and I don't know, for whatever reason, like they think he was a disappointment when he was with the Seattle Seahawks. I just do not understand how you could think that about Geno Smith. So I think it's going to be a great pairing, obviously with what they are building there with the Raiders, and I think for even the next couple of years, it's going to get even better.
Hey, so the Jets weren't wrong. They were just 10 years early.
They were. You know what? You could find solace in that. The Jets weren't wrong. They were just way too early. So feel good about that.
That's all there is.
The Raiders bet here that we have from Ben Lindsay, over 7.5 wins. So the PFF projection we had right there at that 7.5 wins. But the reason why he likes his bet is because it's plus 140 if you're looking at it on DraftKings right now. So Ben says the Raiders ranked dead last in overall PFF grade at quarterback last season at 58.3 and PFF rushing grade at a 57.9. Their two biggest moves in the offseason, obviously getting Geno Smith and Ashton Jeanty, should significantly raise the floor of this offense, along with the veteran coaching staff and additions like Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly. I'm expecting them to be much more competitive in 2025. So Ben basically has that, the line of 7.5 that's right where PFF is projecting them to be. You're just saying like, hey, I like the line of plus 140, getting plus money there. You're hoping the ball bounces one way. You get that extra win. You go from 7 to 8, and obviously you hit that bet there. So it's right around where we are projecting the Raiders to be. But Dalton, do you think that that's right around 7 or 8? I do. I think this team's going to be competitive. I really do. I think that 7 or 8 feels like a good number for this team.
I mean, this is going to sound like an insult, but just the division is so tough, right? That I think the Raiders, we could look at the Raiders by the end of the year as like the best last place team in football, really, with this offense. And I think there's two things that get you over that win total, right? I think one, the defense has to be functional. Their pass defense has to be just some sort of functional unit that is not the worst we've seen in 5 years. And the other thing, too, I just want to throw out with this offense also is Brock Bowers already was setting records last year, and he was doing so much of his work after the catch, and we know he's great after the catch. I think he's even going to be able to get to be a little more vertical this year as well. He's got that ability to move around the formation and win vertically. We saw the great contested catch he just had in their preseason game against the 49ers, but I think even that is another factor that makes this offense dangerous. So offensively, you feel really good about them pulling their weight to get to that win total. I think their defense just has to be somewhat functional. They can't be dead last in a lot of the metrics they were dead last in last year. So if you do get that, 8-9 wins doesn't sound as crazy, and you feel better, especially about Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly coaching this team as well and their quarterback situation. I could absolutely see them sneaking over that mark, even in a really, really tough division.
Yeah, it seems like we didn't talk about Max Crosby and Brock Bowers a lot here in this preview for the Raiders. They're very good. They're elite. What do you want? I mean, like, that's not the part of the team that we really wanted to dig into. Max Crosby's going to have a bounce-back year. Brock Bowers is going to be one of the best offensive weapons in the NFL. I think that goes without saying. So it was kind of what the team is around them that we wanted to focus the conversation on and what matters most there. We're going to talk about